All right. So let's go ahead and let's get right to it. Let's talk about our debaters here. We got a lot of great guys. These guys are a powerhouse of debaters. These guys have a lot of experience. Let's talk with our first guy. He's a business development manager with Microsoft. Excuse me. Azure. He's a cloud voyager with business and tech insight into the Microsoft ecosystem, hybrid cloud platforms, ag tech, banking, cap markets, healthcare. My God, cloudification. Curious, Chris Marin. Let's come on. Next contestant. This guy, CEO, board member, professor. My God, this guy's like he's got multiple jobs like a Jamaican. NEFO 6, IPv6 transition readiness program. Look it up. Led the development of IPv4. This guy is no more IPv6, but no more IPv4. Chip and chop and chip. Popoviciu. All right, come on now. Next gentleman, Senior Director of IT Cloud and DevOps at NetApp, creator leader for the next generation data center, a cloud-based software-defined data. Oh my God, the big guys are already knocking them off. Hybrid cloud automation, DevOps apps. Oh boy, a little on the DevOps side, Mr. Michael Morris. This guy, he's the belle of the ball, technical solutions architect from Cisco, data center, technical service and account manager focused on hybrid multi-cloud, data center WAN. Oh my Lord, we've got a lot of acronyms in there. Battle-tested Mark Belle-Isle. Last but not least.
No Cisco, but I'm not biased.
That's right. All right, he's a senior fellow licensed to go in North Carolina State, go Wolfpack. He is also Strategic Innovation Research Commercialization Council, registered patent attorney, GAD, MBA, all that stuff, Mr. Jason Graham. All right. Folks, we've got a good crowd. You guys are going to have a good time hearing from these. Now, I told you, they're going to take pro and con positions. There's going to be 5 rounds, and there's 5 of these guys. So there's going to be 2 pros and 2 cons. Not every time in every round is everyone going to speak. So you see the green are going to be the pros, the reds are going to be the cons. Mr. Morris will sit out the first, Chip will second, Jason third, Mark fourth, and then Chris, you're going to sit out for the tail end of the event. Okay, so let's get started with our first question that we're going to pose to these debaters here. Now you guys can start getting on your phones, start voting. It's a little bit like American Idol here. So if you haven't left that website, it's back up there. You'll see this coming up. Cloud computing provides greater reliability and uptime. Go ahead and put your vote in there if you agree or disagree. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first debater, and he's going to be Mr. Chris Marin. He's going to start with the pro side. It's going to have 2 minutes. Mr. Rich, go ahead and get that teed up. I'm going to get my gun ready. How's that?
Yeah, right.
All right. Your time starts now.
So, good evening. Thanks for being here. I will say I'm going to be a little bit of a fly in the ointment in the sense that Greg was really good about getting us to do this, but I'll start off with a comma depending on your scenario. That's truly the reality, right? So from a reliability and uptime point of view, I'll go I might say something like, you could point to uptimes. I'm going to try to play by his rules, but I'm afraid realistically I'm not. The reality is everyone has an outage. It doesn't matter whether it's us as Microsoft for Azure, AWS has had outages. I'm going to guess everyone who's in IT has had that panic moment when they recognize that they have an outage. that's reality. When you think about providing perhaps a global application or something that's really does need to stay uptime, what you need to start to do is think about how am I scaling from an infrastructure point of view? What are the needs of my users? And then start to think through the potential math of what reliability do I need? And and is it a need that's currently being met, or is it changing? And then who am I going to do, how am I going to solve that problem around that new particular need, around that new outcome, and how quickly do I want to get there? And that's where I think a hyperscale provider like us starts to make a difference. It's not going to be for every scenario, but it is going to be when you start to do the math and say, well, we could borrow Azure for this, or we could then go build out something that's going to require a lot of CapEx.
Wow, 4 seconds to spare.
Wow. I'm dying to use this. I saw the side going up. Okay, we got Marvelous. Mark Delisle, you're next. You're going on the con side. So go ahead and give your statement.
All right, so we talk about what reliability, uptime. Most folks think of sort of 5 nines, right? Means 5 minutes of downtime per year. 4 nines is like an hour of downtime per year. Pretty standard measurement. That 5th nine, 4th nine, really it comes down to operations. If we look at, there was a Network World article published not too long ago. The published downtime numbers from Microsoft were 1,934 downtime hours per year. Google was 361 and Amazon was 338. So, folks, or I mean, at your company, it's 4 or 5 nines. Does it sound about right? You got ops guys say that. Microsoft's availability was 80%. Right. Even Amazon was 96%. It's a pretty small number. So, cloud has its functions, right? Depends on what your use case is. But when it comes to just overall availability and reliability, it's not.
Plenty of time to spare. All right, so we're going to do, see if that disagree side comes up a little bit. Now we're going to go back to Mr. Chip. You've got the pro side. Go ahead and hold your card up. You want a mic?
I do want a mic.
All right, sir. Your time starts now.
All right, so first off, let me ask the audience, how many folks here think that IT is core competency for their business? Okay, so less than 20%. So the point here is, why don't we let somebody whose core competency is IT to manage our infrastructure? This way, at least we know that as long as we keep an eye on them, right? So, trust but verify. Keep that in mind. Metrics, trust but verify. Stick to the SLA, measure them to the SLAs. But this is what they do day in, day out. So, in my view, this is the right way to actually offload your loads. Now, the question is it applicable to everything? I think here I'm very much with Chris. I think also with the previous point as well. Maybe it's not for everything, but a review of your application stack, a review of your service portfolio will tell you what fits in the cloud and what doesn't. It's a much easier conversation with your CFO. It's much easier for them to understand. And again, it comes down to core competency.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Popoviciu. Mr. Lamb, you've got 2 minutes. You're on the con side. What do you got?
Con side. All right. So let's get back to the question at hand. Cloud computing provides greater reliability and uptime. So greater reliability and uptime compared to what? So you got to compare it to on-premise infrastructure, on-premise and internal applications. And we've seen numerous cloud reliability issues. We've seen crashes. We've seen hacks. And what it comes down to is cloud is a one-size-fits-all type of solution, and that you have to fit into what that platform is providing. You have to fit into what that cloud vendor is providing, and your custom solutions may or may not fit cleanly on top of that that foundation. So when you're looking at reliability, is that one size fits all, is that reliable for the different applications that you want to deploy? It might be for half of it, or for another half of it, maybe it's not. As far as uptime is concerned, you might have the issue of, if you have a cloud solution, that means your connection to the cloud, your connection to the internet needs to be reliable. So that's another link, another point of risk, another point of failure in that chain. So you're introducing other possible points of failure into a system that was once completely in-house and completely self-managed. So I would disagree.
All right. Folks, that concludes round one. We still don't have a bingo yet, so I'm kind of surprised. I saw a lot of them fly out there. Anybody knock off some boxes? Yeah? Okay, good. No, I'm not answering the question. All right, guys, we're going to get into round two here. This is the next one here. So I'll read this off. You guys as well in the panel with SaaS. This doesn't count, by the way, as a bingo. Companies do not need to worry about how services are maintained or the underlying infrastructure. I'm going to go back to Mr. Marin.
So everybody put a bingo because he said SaaS.
Yeah, he was.
I second that. Sam should get a free check. Thank you.
Can people in the back hear me okay? Yeah, okay. I'm not going to use the mic. I took a very strict interpretation of the definition of software as a service in reading this question. Software as a service should be up all the time, the occasional outage notwithstanding, which occurs, I think, in every organization. The whole point of software as a service, whether it be Gmail, oh my gosh, I used the competitor. Whether it be Netflix, whether it be fill in the blank, is you don't have to worry about what is underneath the covers. That is software as a service by definition. And so that's really how it's defined in the industry. And so that's why I said from a pro point of view, you don't have to worry about the services being maintained or the underlying infrastructure. By definition, you should not have to. Do you have to worry about security? Yes. That is not infrastructure, folks. That is behavior of your end users. Okay? That is people swiping credit cards or getting access that they shouldn't have, potentially. But I would argue that that is not the underlying infrastructure delivering that software as a service to them, to your enterprise. So that you can definitely, I'll leave it at that. We're getting nervous.
All right, Mark, you got it. You're going to go on the con side. Tell us what you got.
Hang on. Yeah? So I totally agree, right? Software as a service, right, should be available 100%. Probably not realistic. The difference in Netflix, though, and what your companies are doing as far as software as a service, companies, they pay Salesforce or Cisco, like with WebEx, right? It enables your company to make money using that product, right? You guys are better doing it. We consume that from you to help our business make money. So there is a vested interest in what's going on under the hood. As far as security goes, passwords, well, encryption at rest is a security thing. That's also infrastructure. It's not just some voodoo. Yes, it works, right? If you go to Meraki.com/trust, here's how our backend works. WebEx, for example, for team meetings, what happens if your company can't talk to each other for a day? It's a lot of lost money. So we publish what the backend looks like, what our security processes are, what our procedures are, what the infrastructure is for peace of mind, right? We're not going to guarantee and pay you if an SLA is not met per se. Based on what we use and what we do, you can probably expect around a 99.99% uptime or something like that. So it's you should publish what's on the back end and what your process and infrastructure is.
Okay, Michael, you're on the pro side. What do you got?
Yeah,
Mike, that doesn't work. All right, can everyone hear me?
Oh, we can hear you.
I just
Come on.
really silly, didn't I?
Yeah. I just had to push the button. I work in IT. All right, so.
Did you turn it on and off?
It has a green light now. All right, my clock's kicking here. So Chris had it right. The point of software as a service is to remove the responsibility of your organization to have to worry about the underlying infrastructure and components that make up the service you're buying. And by the way, you're paying for that. So if you're going to go to software as a service and take advantage of the capabilities that a software as a service provider is giving you, then you need to save money in other areas and be efficient in other areas. And that's probably going to come from other areas you used to be responsible for, whether that's infrastructure or underlying platforms and software stacks, because now that's coming as a cost that's included in the software as a service. Now that doesn't mean you don't necessarily want to check on that or have maybe SLAs or contract levels that ensure certain levels of uptime and stuff like that, but it's not your job on a day-to-day basis to maintain and worry and track those type of capabilities, because you're paying for that as part of the software as a service. You want to spend your time leveraging that software as a service for your business to achieve business goals. And that's why companies are moving to software as a service, because they're getting all the capabilities of that software as a service that's already been automated and packaged by a company, and you don't have to do it yourself. So you can quickly move and take advantage of those capabilities to solve your business problems and not have to worry about all the other underlying components.
Excellent. Well, good. Just a quick reminder, if you do finish early, it's not rollover seconds, so that is it. All right, Mr. Lamb, you're next.
On the con side, so there's a difference between the promise of SaaS and often the reality of SaaS. So yes, it should work that way. You should not have to worry about how the system is maintained in the underlying infrastructure, but often you need to at least be able to take a peek to know what are the guiding principles of how that system is set up and how it's being maintained. Now, SLAs can take you to a certain level because they'll guarantee a certain level of service, a certain uptime, but you might want to also see, okay, how is this being maintained? What's the schedule for updating for security patches? What's the schedule for updating for OS rollouts and the like? And if you're going to take a completely blinded black box view of your software as a service vendor, then you're setting yourself up for failure and you're exposing yourself to risk. So I would say that this is not true, and that you should have at least a view into how that software as a service system is being maintained, and also its underlying infrastructure, because that will get at what is the plan for introducing new technologies on this software as a service. Will I be able to take advantage of new features and capabilities down the line? Now, if your vendor is locked into a certain way of doing things, maybe you can't take advantage of certain things that your competitors can. Now, you can always move from that SaaS vendor to another, but there's a cost associated with that, and there's time and resources associated with that. So I would say that this is not true.
Oh, you want to ask a question?
No, I want to rebuttal.
Oh, no. We don't. Are we going to let them do that, guys? Sure. No, okay. Now, the audience already voted no. I'm noticing, I'm noticing you guys start sweating when it goes the other way, you're watching the numbers go up. Just keep that going. Keep that up. All right, guys. We just finished round 2. That was excellent. Okay, so for the next round, we're going to have, Jason, you're going to sit out on this one. Chris, you're going to start it off. One more time. You're going to take the con position. I'll read this off for you guys. Edge computing needs cloud computing and not the other way around. Go ahead and vote if you agree or disagree with this statement.
Yeah, I might say I had a difficult time taking all of these positions because I'm not as skilled debater as my peer. I'm less than him on the other end, the JD. And so I was dealing with reality when I was looking at these questions. Anyway,
Wait a second.
it's reality. It's not as black and white as our moderator would like us to believe. So I hope
you scored this one down.
I
have the crowd on my side here.
So the reality is that you need both. Okay, you need both edge and cloud. I'm taking the con position that you need cloud more than edge, and it really does depend on the application. It is very, very difficult to take. Let me ask you a question. Is anyone who out there is maybe looking at an IoT project right now? Just one. Who is working in supercomputing? Anybody? Okay. How about containers? No, I'm striking out. So,
Bingo.
oh, I've got a solution for that at the end. I'm going to spoil it. So, if you think about business outcomes and the way that technology is moving, it's not slowing. And the demands on business or organizations or education it's never really receding. Those expectations are always coming higher. So cloud is built to take capacity or capabilities like high performance, like IoT, like big data, and free it up for folks that may not otherwise be able to access it. Okay, and that I think is the greater potential for cloud versus having to have a built-up supercomputer or IoT array at the edge.
Okay. I know.
3 seconds to spare.
I'm a little trigger happy tonight. I really want to use that zapper. All right, Michael, you are on the pro side. Go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, edge computing needs cloud computing, right? And not the other way around, because think about it today is how many of you raised your hands when you were doing an IoT project, which is edge? Like 3? How many of you are doing cloud projects? Come on, you're all more than that, right? Okay, a lot of you are doing cloud projects and stuff, so cloud doesn't need edge. It can function as itself. Whereas edge computing has a specific function of local processing for some specific need. It could be an IoT device, it could be mobile devices, it could be local compute processing and stuff that has to be done quickly and efficiently at a local level, but relies on the cloud for centralized processing and ultimately finished results. So you're going to see that any edge computing environment has to send and has to be able to move data back to a cloud to be processed and to present the final package to end users or whatever the business process is trying to do. So absolutely, edge computing needs cloud computing, not the other way around, because we already use cloud computing extensively without an edge. But whenever you're using edge computing, you're going to have a cloud component to do all the final work on whatever business process you're working on.
You want to drop this?
All right. That's it. Good. All right. Mr. Popoviciu, IPv6 guy, what's your story on this?
Okay.
Rebuttal.
Yeah, so my chance. So, so first off, I want to say one thing that for me is very important. The IT paradox is still on. We still have not proven the value of IT. Let's just make that clear. Things are faster, cat videos are faster, Facebook is faster, but the value to the business of IT is still has to be proven. I think instrumentation, so Internet of Things, edge computing is what is going to improve business processes. Question, how many folks here know about Raspberry Pi? And you guys say that you don't do IoT, right? So Raspberry Pi is a platform this big, at $35, that you can run machine learning on it. TensorFlow runs on a Raspberry Pi, and you can do image recognition, you can run your ML algorithms on it, you can do a lot of things at the edge. Where's the mic?
Outstanding.
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 Well, there's no rebuttal to that. And Michael, you got, excuse me, it's, yeah, Mark.
Mark, respond to Mike too.
You got it.
Hopefully I can be loud enough. So yeah, I mean, I took the question to be which needs what, not or what, right? And it already said, right, cloud is, it's you know, what's your use case, right? I need to get this done to make sense to do it there or not. With edge computing, to Mike's point, I can't put it much more, or much better, to be honest with you. Just, you could take some customer use cases, right, or some business use cases, say Monsanto or Syngenta, right? Their IoT edge is a crop field somewhere, right, where they're on a farm. The analytics that need calculated there has to be done back in the cloud, not, you know, on the tractor. So one is reliant on the other. Like I said, everybody has cloud initiatives here where uses cloud here, not has money-making IT initiatives or money-making IT edge initiatives, right? Raspberry Pi or TensorFlow, that's cool, but not at scale for my company, so.
Okay, so we got the votes here. We got the pros, 79%, and about 21% on the cons. We're gonna move on here to round number 4. This time, Mark, since you just last spoke, we're gonna let you sit out on this round. We're gonna start again with Chris. Chris, you're gonna go ahead and address this issue. I'll read it for the audience here. Vendor lock-in is a thing of the past with cloud services. Do you agree or disagree? And Chris, you're gonna take the calm position on this one.
Am I?
These are loaded questions.
Give the cloud guy all the,
These are kind of like your baby.
You better be able to make this question. Josh is watching.
Can you come up from a link?
Cloud providers, vendors,
All right, Chris, go for it.
I'm disagreeing with this, correct?
Yes, you are.
So, who's in Azure today?
Everybody thinks Microsoft.
Okay, where's the mic? So I think while there are these large there are these large clouds that we talk about, whether it's us as Azure, GCP, Google Compute Platform, AWS. From an infrastructure point of view, the cloud is actually a lot bigger than that. And I would argue that we are constantly enabling even competitors to other aspects of our business. For example, we have folks like Oracle that we both partner with and then compete with ferociously. And that hasn't changed over the last 8 years, and I don't think it's going to change in the future. The type of competition may change, but I would say the other thing that from a philosophical point of view we enable as Microsoft in this particular case is the fact that we make it very clear on how you remove your data from our clouds, such that you can take that data and move it somewhere else, should that be something that you desire. So that also, from a philosophical point of view, is something that we believe in very strongly. We do believe in great transparency. Just a footnote that you can look up SOC 2 requirements, SOC 3, ISO 27018. I mean, there are a bunch of compliance areas that we abide with and publish. Shoot, I needed more time on this one. So, yeah, right? So, again, competition isn't changing. The type of competition may change.
God, Chip, you got. I know you got a rebuttal to this one. Come on, bring it on.
Well, I'm not sure I have a rebuttal because I think Chris made the opposite position. So he's in my camp. So I'm with the audience, polling kind of thing. How many folks here have a single vendor in their network, in their business? Oh wow, I'm lost then. I was going to make a case that
Don't ever ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Yes,
Lawyer 111.
Yes,
That's right.
how many folks have heard about the saying, if you buy IBM, you're not going to get fired? Right? Okay. So that's lock-in that has been there for a long time. You buy Cisco, they are going to lock you in, and you got to get locked in. And dual vendors are going to be kind of a hard thing to push. I think with cloud, you have just more options to get out. You still have the responsibility to decide when you make your choices whether your data is movable or not, which is the most important thing. But it's still your responsibility to get out. I think with cloud, you just have more options to exit the possible chokehold of a vendor. But this is going to be an ongoing issue. It's going to come down to peace of mind. Which vendor gives you peace of mind?
Okay, you guys believe that horseshit? Okay, all right.
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Michael, come on, set us straight here. Give us the other side of the story.
So I'm the con to this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to do better than me.
So the point of any good business is to create a competitive advantage, get customers to buy it, and prevent those customers from getting out of it. And I got news for you, AWS and Azure and GCP are good companies. So the whole point of those cloud companies is to sell you services that you can't live without and make it very hard for you to get out of those services. Case in point is your data, right? Did you ever notice that AWS doesn't charge you to bring your data in, but they charge you to pull it out? Okay, it's Hotel California, right? You can check out, but you can never leave. Okay, so that's where you've got to consider the cloud lock-in is vendor lock-in still actually in worse scenarios, because now you're relying not only on it for the business processing part of your applications, but also the data storage of your application. So you've got a double whammy there. And that applies to the big hyperscalers we've been talking about, but also applies to the SaaS companies we were talking about before. Imagine like you're using Office 365, which is a fantastic SaaS product, by the way, we use it extensively. But then you decide to move to Gmail. Good luck getting all your email and all your calendar entries out of there and migrating it efficiently over to Gmail, right? It's not going to happen. So vendor lock-in is an extreme problem in cloud providers. Nothing that we haven't dealt with in IT for decades, but it's the same problem because any good company is going to create services that give them competitive advantage, going to get customers to buy them, and they're going to make it very hard for you to get out of those services. That's a good business, and we as IT professionals have to be aware of that.
Okay, I see a little black eye on the other side here. That one, that was good. Mr. Lamb, you're going to close this out. You're the anchor guy, pro. Why is vendor lockout a thing of the past with cloud services?
Okay, so vendor lock-in is a thing of the past with cloud services for the discerning customer. So when you're looking to employ a SaaS solution, cloud services, what you want to do is offload those portions of your internal IT infrastructure that are kind of vanilla, things that can be easily replicatable in the cloud with another IT solution off-premise. What you don't want to do is try to replicate what's unique, what's the unique application that you want to deploy. So you can avoid vendor lock-in by simply not putting everything on the cloud. Maybe you don't need a complete SaaS solution. Maybe you need a platform as a service solution where you deploy your unique applications on top of a platform that's more generic. A lot of cloud solutions are kind of a one-size-fits-all proposition. So what that means is that you shouldn't have to be locked in if you don't go in on everything that they're providing, their own little variations on every little thing. And just stick to, I'm trying to replicate, I don't want to build a data center. I want an online data center. Stick to that, and you'll avoid the lock-in. So for those that are just signing up for the next new thing, yeah, you might get locked in, but for the discerning customer, you should not be locked in.
Thank you, Jason. All right, folks. Right now we got 72% on the disagree con side, 28 on the pro. This is the final round, folks. This is it. We're going to go to round 5. Chris, you're setting out for this. You're done.
Yeah, I am.
That's it. Thrill on both sides. All right. Now, the rest of you victims, you got a question here. This is the last question of the evening, and last question for you on the debate side for this audience. Here's the question. Using a cloud provider will address your legal goals and compliance concerns. Oh, you know I teed this up for you. Mr. JD, MBA, electrical engineering guy. But we're not going to start with you. So no, we're gonna go with Chop and Chip. Chip, I know you're chomping at the bit to get this one in. Chip, tell us, why do you disagree with this statement?
All right, so I disagree with this statement because it ultimately comes down to ownership of responsibility for this type of problems. So we all try to kind of push some of this ownership to somebody else. Let somebody else to take responsibility for it. I'm just going to sign some paper. I'm going to trust that that guy is going to take care of it. And if something happens, maybe he's going to pull the chestnuts out of the fire himself. So theoretically, yes, that could happen. But how many of you or how many of your bosses have read the fine print in all these agreements? Oh, great. It's a new business, I think, that definitely should be started in terms of consulting for that. I think that theoretically, we can trust the cloud providers to be very responsible for their own brand. And so if they mess up, then yes, of course, you can say, well, they mess up, so they're gonna do everything they can to take care of the problem. But there are so many loopholes, there are so many ways in which that responsibility can be passed on to you that you have to be very diligent and very careful to make sure that all those items are actually covered. So, as an example, I do think that as much as we would like for this to kind of just go away, it really ends up being our responsibility, but in a different way, in a different shape.
Okay, Chip, thank you. So we got that side. Looks like you did a pretty damn good job there. 88% of you think the same. Either you're good or they don't know any better. So
Or they already knew the answer. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, give us your take on this. Using a cloud provider will address your legal goals and compliance concerns. Why would you agree with that statement?
So I guess we need to define legal goals and compliance, right? So who's heard of, was it Equinix? Equinox, sorry. Yeah, Equifax, whatever it was, right?
Carfax,
There was almost
Equifax,
gross
whatever.
negligence, right? They didn't patch their stuff. Aquaman? They didn't patch, right? It's negligence. If my goal is keeping data in country, so with Germany, right, if citizen data needs to stay in country, right? There's a data locality issue. That's a legal concern. Maybe I don't have a presence in Germany, so I pick a cloud provider like Azure to host my application there, and that's what I take care of that. It's not going to make sure that everything is configured for you properly, that your edge security is properly maintained, right? You still have to do it yourself, but it does get you into places where you normally wouldn't be. In that capacity, a cloud provider will help you address your legal goals and compliance, absolutely.
Okay, guys, Michael, you got to throw some wisdom on this one. What's going on here? Con side.
On the con side of this one?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's our answer, right?
That's
Yeah.
exactly how I felt.
All right, well, we're doing audience participation tonight, right? Okay. So I want everyone to say this with me, right? Okay. No, that's not my responsibility.
No, that's not.
Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Okay, how'd that work? Right, so keep that in mind when you say that, well, no, it's not my responsibility anymore, that I pass that off to a cloud provider. Okay, sure, good luck with that. It's still your business process, it's still your customer data, it's still your other business data that you're responsible for, and you have fiduciary responsibility to protect regardless of where you choose to house and process that data and run your business processes. So absolutely. Now, yes, the cloud gives you some capabilities that maybe you didn't have in-house that would allow you to adhere to some of those legal goals and compliance needs and stuff like that, but it does not remove the responsibility you have to meet those compliance responsibilities. Again, try saying that with Your Honor at the end, and you'll see that you fail miserably.
Well done. We're getting down. This is the last one. Mr. Jason Lamb. Finish him.
Dedicator.
So, in a court of law, when you're talking to the judge and you're saying, Your Honor, it's not my responsibility, if you have a piece of paper where you've given that responsibility to someone else has accepted it, the judge will then turn to that person, and then they will be liable. That's how this works.
You dropped the mic yet. He's still going.
So if
I want your card.
So if you enter into a contract with a service provider and you have your legal team carefully lay out what they're supposed to be responsible for, what they're taking responsibility of, what data, what they're taking custody of, what are the rules behind that? You can lay out a clear case of you will indemnify me, which means you will step in for me in court. You will take the hits for me in court. The issue is we often don't read that stuff. We often don't point out those issues. We often don't tell our legal team, make sure you tell them to cross that weird line out that says that they're not liable, because they are. We've all signed those weird, like 1,000-page software agreements where we give away everything. But when you're talking about a business-to-business relationship, where I'm taking my customer's data and I'm putting it in your possession, you don't have to sign. You're not they're not holding a gun to you. You don't have to sign that agreement. So you can tell them, I'm going to take my services to somewhere else. And guess what? There are many cloud providers who will step up and sign that agreement and take that responsibility, and it will hold up the fort. Right.
Very nice. Folks, let's give a round of applause. Excellent job. 90% on the disagree side. Thank you, Sweet Delay, Jason Lamb. All right, you have heard 5 topics, and boy, you got 2 views on each side. That's a lot of stuff to take in, okay? So we are done with the rounds. Now here's what we're gonna do. GDPR.
Yeah.
Oh, he threw it in. Sucks. So we're back to this. No bingos, which is interesting because I thought we would have had 20 of them by now. But anyway, so we've got some questions up here, guys. Please submit those, rank them. If you want to vote up one of them, go ahead. Right now, we're going to keep this an open round. So this is your time to ask a question. If you're shy, just pick up your phone, text it, or get on the app, get it up there. So let's start with the first one. We'll leave these up there for a few minutes, and then we'll get into the prizes shortly after. So first one here, what disruptor technology will begin the next paradigm shift in cloud technologies? Oh my Lord, that had probably about 1, 2, 3, 4 different bingo buzzwords in there. So who on the panel wants to take this on for additional points? Michael? You don't need a mic.
I don't need a mic.
You're good.
I'm good. So my view on this one is actually containerization. Everyone's all heard about, I'm going to hit the bingo here, right? So Docker, containers in Kubernetes. Come on, that's no one?
Keep going.
Keep going?
One more.
Running in the public cloud? Okay. All right, so here's my view of what happened here, right, is that the infrastructure as a service wars are kind of over, all right? Now, you've got Amazon, you've got Microsoft, you've got Google and stuff like that, but at the most part, Amazon won that, all right? Microsoft's caught up, thank you, you do a nice job and stuff, but when you think about it and stuff, right, but Amazon won that game, right? So what's the next phase, though, and the next wave in cloud usage is how you abstract the infrastructure at another level, and that's what you do with containers, and you get real key capabilities with that abstraction layer, which is why Google is making a big move with Kubernetes and what they're doing and trying to leapfrog Amazon's lead when it came to the infrastructure world. It's why IBM bought Red Hat. So for all the things that Red Hat sells, what IBM wanted to get their hands on was OpenShift. Because what IBM looked at and they said, yeah, we tried to do that Blue Cloud thing, or what was their cloud name? Bluemix. Yeah, they lost to Amazon, right? They lost bad. So instead of trying to say, well, we're just going to build a bigger, faster, cheaper infrastructure cloud, we're going to try to leapfrog Amazon and get into containerization. And that's going to be the next big wave. But Google's got a big lead because they essentially wrote the management platform for containers, which is Kubernetes.
And where's the guy who invented Kubernetes?
Oh, yeah, I forget where he works, that's right.
How much did you pay? You're like the Yankees.
All right, 1,000
No,
points to
but
everybody there on that one.
it's to his point, right? I think if we can help upskill developers and infrastructure folks on containers, it has the potential to, I think you would completely agree, at least in the next 12 to 24 months. And we did hire him away from Google.
Chip?
All right,
You're
so
chomping at the bit there.
yeah, because I have a slightly different opinion. So containers, VMs, who cares? It's about loads and how you manage loads and how easy you make those available to users. I don't care what type of orchestration you're going to use. You don't care what type of orchestration is being used. What you really care about is, can I get it fast? Can it solve my business problem? And I believe that what the cloud needs is true virtualization that goes beyond compute, through the network, all the way to the end users, all the way to the people who can actually access it. Because otherwise, you're going to spend a ton of time going through the process of using your Docker containers or using your VMs or setting all that stuff up.
What's the technology you're talking about
That's what's needed.
there? Okay, so, all right.
Yeah. I mean,
Ubiquitous computing, let's call it?
yes, if if the infrastructure guys would step up to that, then we would have a little bit more connectivity.
Mark, you want to pile on that?
No?
No? You're not touching it. Nice.
He's looking for dimension. I'm too hurt.
So along these lines, not exactly, but as far as getting connectivity faster, not having to wait 4 weeks for your provider to do some cross connects. Has anyone heard of PurePort? Okay, they're a Raleigh startup. You should go check them out. PurePort. So if you're talking about cloud at all, and you're talking about access to your data, right? Where's your data today? How might you do how might you get access to it quickly so you could do some sort of cloud pilot or proof of concept? PurePort gets around the I need to wait for fill in the blank to do cross connects and do cables, and it's going to take me 4 weeks. They do layman's terms, software defined layer 3 connectivity, and they charge by the minute. So check them out. And they're local.
Actually,
And
you know what?
one more, sorry.
Back to your point though, I got something for you.
Yeah, sorry.
Last question.
One quick comment on that. So Amazon, yes, they run away, but it's not just the infrastructure; it's the ecosystem, which I think that is a big barrier of entry for a lot of other providers.
Game-changing transport coming forward. 5G should help distribute. That's it.
We're done.
He's got the gun.
Yeah.
Lightning round, 30
Under duress.
seconds. We're going to get to this one question here. 30 seconds apiece. Lightning round. How really secure is HTTPS with cloud platforms? Cisco WebEx, Contact Center. Jason?
You go.
Yep. You're passing?
Yeah, I'm passing.
Michael? 30 seconds.
How really secure is HTTPS with cloud platforms? I mean, is the protocol itself?
Right? Like I don't.
Like,
You're talking about TLS?
yeah, how
What's
how good the encryption is?
Has it been broken yet?
Who asked that question?
What's the?
Because
what's the end goal?
I'm a Cisco voice solutions engineer.
Yeah.
And I'm heavily into using WebEx Contact Center or whatever. And I'm just wondering how secure is, since everything is virtual and like we have to access everything on the cloud.
Right.
As opposed to on-prem.
Oh, yeah. No, as a protocol goes, HTTPS is fairly secure, particularly if you get the certificates done right. Now, you can tell man-in-the-middle attacks, that's the point of TLS, that protects against man-in-the-middle attacks, unless you've got some really advanced nation-state hackers who are plugging into undersea cables. So that's a whole different type of scenario. But hackers are not going to try to break HTTP connections. They're going to try to send you phishing emails, get inside your environment, escalate permissions on your Active Directory environment, and own you that way. I wouldn't worry about getting inside
Michael,
HTTPS.
thank you. Chris, you want to answer to that? No? Chip?
No, that was a
Mark?
perfect answer.
Well, and it comes back to the point: what's behind the covers of your SaaS provider, right? That's what you want to know. Is it secure? If you look up what does WebEx data center look like, or what does their platform on the back end look like, you'll see we have our own network. It's fully encrypted, encryption at rest. Like, here's what we do for security. On top of the fact that no one's going to try and brute force, TLS. So
There's much easier ways to get
in
in.
both sides.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it a different way, I think upwards of 80% of all hacks are going for two things: username, password. That's where the majority of behavior is, and that's where the majority of bad behavior from an end user point of view is.
Actually, there's a website if you go to, is it haveitbeenpwned, I think, .com. Put your email in, and I mean, my Netflix account has been hacked before, so that was up there. So that's what they're going for. Sure.
Okay, guys, we're wrapping this up. Now, here's the last vote that you're going to do. Completely arbitrary. The points are meaningless, but hey, everyone gets 1,000 points for this point. Go ahead and cast your vote. Keep this alive for a little longer.
No love?
Somebody come on. Bell the ball.
Apparently
Mark,
not.
come on.
Thanks, Kate.
There we go. That's probably his mom. Just
Let me log in.
Come on. All right, guys, this is all fun, tongue in cheek. It's been great. Look, a lot of good questions were asked. We didn't get to all the questions, so what we'll do is we'll build an FAQ. We'll get those back to you. We'll post this out. This video will also be uploaded to YouTube, so you can see it and share it with your friends. Hopefully you learned something that you can take back, and it's an actionable thing that you can take back tomorrow, Friday morning, or Monday morning when you return back to work. and you've actually opened up your minds to some new topics that maybe you didn't know as much before. So let me go ahead, and last thing I want to do is just thank all of you for coming out here. I want to thank our participants, our debaters here. Yep.